Good morning. I'd like to speak a little bit this morning about a statement that our Master made one morning in Santa Barbara during the latter years of his life, when I, together with Brian Kneep and Richard Medway, were very privileged to be taking care of him in his private home. And to all intents and purposes, it was a very ordinary morning, if one can consider any morning or any time to have been ordinary when in the presence of our Master. In that sense, nothing was ordinary. And anyway, I had evidently moved or passed through his living room too quickly for his liking. And so he followed me in and he said, "Why are you rushing?" And before I could answer, he said, "There is no rush." And then he added, "There is only God's time, which is now, and it's all happened anyway." And then he turned around and left the kitchen. Wow, what an amazing statement. What an amazing thought. There's only God's time, which is now, and it's all happened anyway. I think, at least in part, it revealed much more of where our Master's mind and knowledge truly lay. In a far greater cosmic sphere, a greater cosmic realm of knowledge and understanding, in the unfolding of God's great plan for all of creation, all taking place in the now. And it's all happened anyway, because there's nothing that can stop it, because it is God's plan. I think when we think about this statement, at least when I think about this statement, it makes me realize far more the preciousness of this moment, of this time, literally of being, what it is to be alive as part of this great unfolding plan in the now. It reminds me of the wonderful lines from the poet, English poet William Blake, in his poem Auguries of Innocence, when he wrote, "To hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour." It allows one to grasp this far greater realization, this understanding, the beauty and the perfection, as I say, of being and of life. And in terms of it all having happened anyway, well, that could be a cause to do nothing. Because it's all happened anyway. What can I do? There's nothing to do. And in that sense, it's true. There is nothing to do. But it's not what we're taught by the cosmic masters. In fact, I think quite the reverse. It should be an inspiration to work. But work as part of this great cosmic plan. And to that end, the Ascended Master Saint Guling gave us some wonderful advice, brilliant advice, in a transmission he gave on July the 8th, 1965, exactly to the day, 1 year after the primary initiation of Earth. When he said, "Remember for whom you work. Remember for what you work. This memory will govern how you work." Remember for whom you work. We work for great cosmic masters in a great unfolding cosmic plan for the enlightenment and salvation of our whole world. And that memory will govern how we work. That memory, that realization of who we're working for and what we're working for. And I think that sentiment, that concept, runs throughout all of creation, guiding and governing every single being or enlightened being, every master. Throughout this system, the interplanetary masters working for great Saturnian masters and solar lords, who themselves are working for even greater beings, karmic lords, galactic lords, who themselves are working for even greater beings, supreme lords of creation, who themselves are working for God, insofar as even they can understand this concept of God, the brilliance of it, the perfection of it, the divinity of it. And it runs throughout the whole gamut. And it's there to guide each and every one of us to remember who and what we're working for. Saint Guling, in that same transmission given on July the 8th, 1965, said, "I have investigated every existing spiritual organization, for it is my work to know all existing organizations on earth today." And as we also know, he visualized the Aetherius Society into being. What a concept, to visualize the Aetherius Society. He's the master who preceded the Master Jesus in the giving of each of the 12 blessings, and who preceded Mars Sector 6 in the giving of each of the 9 freedoms. He's the master who spoke before the Master Jesus on September the 23rd, 1967, in one of the greatest transmissions ever given to this world, entitled "The Three Saviors Are Here," at the outset of Operation Carmelite. I'd like to reread the opening words from the Master Jesus given in that transmission, when he said, "Many centuries ago, the wise ones looked into time, looked into the now, and there they saw apparently inevitable results brought about by the fall of man. They conferred together, allowing the shining oil of sweet compassion to imbue their negotiations. They took into consideration the deep karmic implications of what was to come. Then turned they to 3 devoted beings and asked of these to give up the bliss of their advanced initiatory status and take gross bodies bound by karma, held by the limitations of man, and come and live and breathe and eat and pray and suffer among ye." I think we can fairly safely assume that one of those wise ones was the Master Aetherius, because several years later, in August of 1990, he told us that one of those 3 adepts, our beloved Master, His Eminence Sir George King, was his star pupil and always has been since before he even came among us. And I think in terms of taking into consideration the deep karmic implications of what was to come, these same wise ones almost inevitably would have consulted with the ineffable, with the lords of the flame, the Logos of this earth, and the Sanat Kumara, and the great Lord Babaji, and possibly other members of the spiritual hierarchy of earth, including Saint Guling, the keeper of the Great Seal, perhaps the Book of Records. As he said, I have investigated every existing spiritual organization, for it is my work to know all existing organizations on earth today. And the question was asked, is there an organization that can take these new cosmic teachings and missions that are going to be given to this world as part of this great cosmic plan for the salvation and enlightenment of earth? And it was determined that there was no such organization, and so it fell upon Saint Guling to visualize the Aetherius Society into being, such that these teachings and missions could be given to this earth. Central, of course, to this great cosmic plan, we know, was the primary initiation of earth on July the 8th, 1964. And the reason these adepts came, as we're told in that transmission, was to perform Operation Carmelite. Of course, before Operation Carmelite came the alien mission that necessitated two other adepts coming to this world. Such was the seriousness of that predicament. In August of 1965, our Master wrote in the Aetherius Society newsletter how this alien got into the lower astral realms of this planet in the first place has not yet been revealed, but it is possible that this intelligence was responsible for the destruction of Maldek. And this consumed the adepts as a priority, seemingly over and above the importance of Operation Carmelite, which possibly was pushed back in time because of the alien mission, and then pushed further back because of the Gotha mission, even though those adepts were ordered off duty by the Master Aetherius to rest and to recover their strength. But they were unable to do so given the dire predicament upon Gotha. And then in 1967, October 1967, came the first phase of Operation Carmelite. And then there was a pressure upon the adepts to have it completed by a certain time, which they did, with the last phase being performed on February the 24th, 1969. And one can wonder, well, why was this time limit placed upon Operation Carmelite? It's possible because it was because of an even greater initiation. There's this great unfolding cosmic plan. And that, of course, was the initiation of the solar system, which we learned about in a transmission by the Master Aetherius on December the 28th, 1969. Later that same year, that Operation Carmelite was completed. And at the very end of that transmission, informing us of the initiation of the solar system, the Master Aetherius added these wonderful, highly revealing words pertaining to its all God's time, when he said, "And thus, slowly, surely, another aspect of the great plan for the total evolution of all beings will be worked out in perfection, which is the governing law behind it all. The great governing law of God, working itself out in perfection in the now of all beings. That is what we are a part. That's the great realization, knowledge, and understanding held by our Master in the now and by all the cosmic masters." And the Master Aetherius goes on. He says, "And you will, like small children, stretch your hands outward and gradually lift yourselves upward into the lasting realms of truth. the lasting realms of truth, that it's all happened anyway in the now. The inevitability of going back to God and all that that means. Being literally in the present moment, holding infinity in the palm of our hands. He goes on, have faith in your God and work in such a way that this faith becomes alive. Remember for whom you work. Remember for what you work. And the confines of ignorance, which have in the past bound you to terror, will be broken down, and you will be able to crawl your way through the universe. The confines of ignorance, which have in the past, bound you to terror, will be broken down. These great cosmic teachings which we have been given, this greater knowledge and realization and understanding of this unfolding cosmic plan for the total evolution of all beings, is being worked out in perfection, which is the governing law behind it all. And as our Master said, there's only God's time, which is now, and it's all happened anyway. What a thought, what a concept, what a realization we can have as we break these confines of ignorance, which have, until now, bound us to this world. Thank you.